Okay, happy Sukkot, Moadim L'Simcha. Let's dedicate our learning to our rabbi's father, Rav Chaim Naftali ben Rav Yaakov Yitzchak Weisblum. Now, we want to try to take some help from Milton Berle to try to cheer up Sukkot, even though this year it's a tough Sukkot. And the interesting thing is, though, people are always saying, what's the real happiness? What's really going to make me happy? So I want you to know, Milton Berle, when interviewed, like many of your favorite comedians, said that he was not a happy person. And he said sometimes after his best shows, after making the audience roll in the aisles, he would come off the stage, and he still would feel down. And in his autobiography by this fellow Haskell Frankel, there's Milton, he said that his main medicine was staying extremely busy, overly busy, because that somehow kept the blues from coming in. As a matter of fact, he had a hard time staying married because he would get so busy with all his different jobs and routines that it didn't really work out being a husband so well. So on the one hand, he tried to find happiness by finding the right wife, but at the same time he wanted to be busy with his shows, and it didn't always work out so well for him. So just for the record, certainly a Jewish perspective, to be happy just from watching comedies and jokes, that's a helper. You know, that's not the whole coffee. That's only something you add to the coffee, a flavor. And he certainly felt that way. And by the way, Milton Berle's Jewish name was Mendel. His mother's name was Sarah. His father's name was Moish. So later on, his mother became known as Sadie, like a lot of ladies back in that time. So as far as the Torah's perspective on laughter and joking, on Shabbat, we all just read from King Shlomo, from Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, that there's a time for everything. And King Shlomo very clearly tells us there's a time to laugh, there's a time to cry, there's a time to hug, there's a time to be distant from hugging. He says there is a time and place for everything. And I can say, if you remember Milton Berle or his clips, you would get the impression that, he only was just funny. He was never serious. He didn't know how to be serious. That couldn't be more from the truth. I wouldn't say that he did exactly what Shlomo Melech said, because he was a big comedian, always trying to get a laugh, one after another, one-liner after another, but he did know when to be serious. But I just want to give a general thing about the Jewish perspective on humor. In the Gemara, you've probably all heard of Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Reish Lakish. We mentioned him a little bit last time. He is the gangster in the Gemara. According to the Art Scroll history, he ran away from home at a young age. He was in the circus. Now, I don't know if the circus in his days, almost 2,000 years ago, was like Barnum and Bailey and Bruce's circus, but I'm sure he picked up some kind of sense of humor. And then he was a gangster. And then, of course, Rabbi Yochanan, his future brother-in-law, Rabbi, best friend, and all the above, brought him back to the fold. And he was a man that had a sense of humor. We find places in the Torah where he had sense of humor. When he first meets his Rabbi, future brother-in-law, Rabbi Yochanan, when they meet up, Rabbi Yochanan tells Reish Lakish, "You have unbelievable strength. You should use your strength for Torah and mitzvahs." So Reish Lakish didn't miss a beat. Milton would have loved it. He said, "Oh yeah, Rabbi, you got a pretty face. You should give your prettiness to a woman. You don't need it." So I mean, and there are other cases he could be funny. Originally, Reish Lakish was a very buff, as the kids say, a very buff, muscular fellow. But that's when he was a gangster running around with knives and other kind of weapons. Of course, though, once you stop exercising and study more, we all know if you have a lot of muscles and you don't exercise, it turns into fat. Our military people here can surely tell us that they remember fellas in the military that were built like Charles Atlas with a 10-pack, but as years passed by and they didn't eat right, they didn't march, didn't do calisthenics, they get a little blobby. Now that didn't happen to our veterans, but it happened to other veterans. So Reish Lakish got heavy later in life. He got very heavy later in life. The Gemara tells that incident. One time his daughter said to him, Abba, shall I go get you a pillow? But he was chubby. He patted his stomach and said, honey, I come with a built-in one, don't bother. So the man definitely had a sense of humor, but in Gemara Brachot, his sense of humor took a big turn. He heard his Rebbe, I think it was Rabbi Yochanan, say that, well, it says in Shir Amalot, which we recite by benching, then, at the end of the days, when Mashiach comes, then we will fill our mouths with laughter, but not until then. So Reish Lakish said to his Rebbe, really? What is all this? And his Rebbe said, yeah, until the time is right, we laugh, but we don't quite fill up our mouths with laughter till everything is just right. From that day on, Reish Lakish became a much, much more serious person. I'm not saying he's a spoiled sport, but he became a much more serious person. Now the commentaries want to try to understand, what is this Gemara saying? Shall we throw away all our comedians, all our laughter? So they say, no, you have to understand what's going on over here. Now, there's a big argument how to understand it. Some people say that if you're busy doing a mitzvah, you can smile and laugh your face off. You can fill your cheeks with laughter. When you were a kid, maybe you remember, I don't know which Disney movie with Edwin, I love to laugh. Ha 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 ha, long and loud and clear. Remember Edwin, the comedian? Jewish guy. So many are the opinion, if you're doing a mitzvah, you can fill up with laughter till you explode. The Gemara tells of an unfortunate fellow who had a bad case while you have food. He had a bad case of the runs. And you know if you have a bad case of the runs, you can't put on filling. So this, I think everybody had this at least once in life. And for a long time, he could not put on filling. And the Gemara says when he finally was able to put his filling back on, he was overjoyed. So some people point to that and said, you see, for a mitzvah you can overfill yourself with laughter and jesting, and you're okay. Other people say, no. The world has suffering. The world's not at peace. There's always someone in the hospital. There's always somebody being a victim of a crime. They say, no. Even for a mitzvah, you gotta know when to stop and wait till the end of days when everything is peaceful. And anyway, a lot of commentaries point out that unbridled jest usually gets people in trouble. Now, I was talking about this in Columbus, Ohio. I'm getting to Milton. I'm going to give you two good Milton stories before you have to go. I was in Columbus, Ohio. We were talking about this, and this nice Russian man, Edgar Karpovich, who has a sense of humor, said, where do you draw the line? How do you draw the line? When we know in halacha, sometimes you have to have a cheek full of something. So I know when my cheeks are full. But how exactly do I know when I'm too filled with laughter and I'm overdoing it? Whatever the reason is, if I'm going to be too laughy, I'm forgetting about the Beis HaMikdash, maybe I'm going to get in trouble, maybe I'm forgetting about my fellow man and woman suffering. How do you know where to draw the line? And we all have met people who don't know where to draw the line, right? Especially sometimes when they start frying you and making others a butt of jokes, they really don't know when to quit. Enters the Rambam. So the Rambam, Maimonides, says like this. A person, this is by the famous Rambam about picking the middle road. And the Rambam says when it comes to laughter and jest, he says, when you feel that you're breaking fences, he uses the word paritz. Paritz means to break the fence. Sometimes when you're telling jokes, or fooling around, you start to feel a little bit out of control. Like someone will say, hey, you're on a roll. The Rambam would say, when they tell you, hey, that's a good joke, you're on a roll, that means maybe one more joke and that's it. Because the Rambam's language is, you're breaking out. Lifrots means like, because every person, has to know their limits of self-control. If they don't, they need to find a nice person to know when to kick them in the shins. My wife is very good at that. But the Rambam just describes that if you're going to start telling jokes to cheer people up, fine. But you have to know when you're starting to break out of your fence, because then you're headed for trouble. Now, Milton. I want to tell you a beautiful story about Milton, because it's funny, and it did not happen on stage. And since Sukkot is also the time of Chag HaAsif, the ingathering, not just the fruits and vegetables, the ingathering of all things good, we forget that. The Sukkah, the Lulav, we focus on that, fine. But Sukkot, after all, is called the holiday of the harvest. And harvest is everything in your life. Any good thing that happened in your life. I came back from Columbus, my car broke down, it's finished. But I just came back from spending time with my family, and there were so many good things that harvest, knocked out the lack of harvest of the car. For certain reasons that you wouldn't be interested in, this car breaking down actually is part of the harvest also. We need to get rid of it. Let me tell you what happened. Milton Berle's first touch of stardom when he was 5 years old. Milton Berle was born in 1908, so in around 1913, in this month, it was Halloween. And Milton Berle came from a very poor family. Not a lazy family. His mother, for a while, was a detective someplace. She was a very cool lady. She made him. His father was an inventor. He always was going from job to job. His father tried hard. He had a hard time making a living. But Milton, they were a poor family. So when Milton was 5 years old in 1913, his buddies said, Milty, it's going to be Halloween. Halloween, you get free candy. Milton was excited. He wasn't a kid that had a lot to eat. They said, you also get pennies. Now, to you and I, pennies mean nothing, but in 1913, you could buy a lot for a penny. Talk to people the generation before Bruce, and they will tell you with a penny, I mean, you really could get things. Bruce, when you grew up, could you do something with a penny? Maybe also, you remember. Yeah. All right, but there was. So now again, his name was Mendel. Milton Berle's real name is Mendel. His real name was Berlinger, not Berle. So anyway, so he's excited, pennies, but I got to get a costume. Now Milton was known as a funny kid, even at 5, but he's really going to be a funny kid. He wanted to be Charlie Chaplin. He figured, I can't ask Mommy for money for a costume. Mama doesn't know where money's coming from for supper. I'm going to ask Mommy for money for a costume. So he slipped into his parents' bedroom, he took the most basic costume. Took his daddy's suit, his daddy's pants, his daddy's shirt, his daddy's hat, his daddy's shoes, puts them on. He's 5 years old, so he looks hysterical. He always made funny faces. And he was walking like Charlie Chaplin. And in those days, Charlie Chaplin was everything. But he says, wait. To be Charlie Chaplin, you got to have a mustache. So in those days, it's very common, you may remember, women used to wear a fur muff. Instead of gloves, you wear a fur muff, you put both fists into it, and you walk around. They're even allowed to carry it on Shabbos if the Erev falls down. So Milton snuck, took a scissor, and he cut off a piece of fur from his mother's muff, glued it on, and he went down the street. Well, this kid did really well with his trick-or-treating and his trick of pennies, and everybody was laughing because he was a funny kid, and he looked like a little Charlie Chaplin. A talent scout went by, and he couldn't stop laughing. He followed Milty to his house, knocks on the door. Are you this young man's mother? She got nervous. What did my kid do? Nothing. Lady, you have given birth to the funniest kid on the planet. He really looks like Charlie Chaplin. I'm a talent scout kind of a guy, and I am running a Charlie Chaplin look-alike contest in Mount Vernon. I want you to come. I'm sure your son's going to win, and we'll see where he goes from there. So he convinced Mrs. Berle, who always had her eye aimed at her son, was going to be big stuff. So she took the money. They took the transportation there. Milty wins hands down. The cute little kid looks like Charlie Chaplin. And what did he get? So the mother figured, you get some money. They got a silver loving cup. Mrs. Berle went like this. Wasn't a whole lot of silver. Remember the old-fashioned loving cup trophies? She didn't have enough money to get back. It took Milty and her a day and a half to get back. The winner. But that was his first big exposure winning the Charlie Chaplin contest. Fast forward. Milton becomes a big star with the help of his mother. His mother went to just about every single show he ever made, and she used to sit there and laugh. And even when the jokes were bad, she would laugh and make everybody else laugh, and they didn't even know what they were laughing about. Such a Jewish mother. She was incredible. Well, anyway, fast forward, he becomes very, 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 very rich. Now, in the old days when you went to get a gift at a department store, and if you remember this, your mother will tell you, your father will tell you, someone will tell you, they would give you a big box, and in them days, the department stores, whatever you like, Macy's, in Baltimore we'd say Hecht Company, Loehmann's, they gave you a lot of tissue paper. That's the way it used to be. So Milton comes, I don't know exactly how old he was, he comes into his mother one day, years and years and years later, he's a big star. Mama, I bought you a present. Gives her a big box with a big bow, and Sadie opens it up, and she starts digging through the tissue paper. 20 pieces of tissue paper. Finally, Milton's mother finds a mink coat. A mink coat. And she's speechless. Milton, what's this? She's crying. Milton puts his arm around his mother and said, Mama, remember when I was 5 years old? I cut up your fur muff to make a mustache? Mama, I never paid you back. I'm paying you back now. Here's a mink stole. True story. So she got hysterical crying. She says, Milty, you don't owe me anything. When you go on stage and you make people happy, that's a mother's nachas. You don't have to get me anything. But I'll keep the coat. Because he said, I owe you. I cut up your muff. He cut out this much to be a little Charlie Chaplin mustache, but that's why he wanted to pay his mother back. But he had a karat atov appreciation to his daddy also. One clue that his daddy had a hard life is his daddy was also an inventor. Now, unless you are Alexander Graham Bell or something like that, if your father's an inventor, your mother darn sight better have a good job. Because that's the way it works. He felt bad for his father. It wasn't successful, and he lived through the Depression, and men during the Depression felt like even more garbage. So one day, Milton took stock of his finances, and he put his arm around Daddy. He says, Daddy, listen, I'm doing really well, thank God. I want you and Mama to retire. So his father said, oh no, Milton Mendel, I can't do that. What will people say? He said, Dad, listen, you worked hard your whole life to support the family. Milton had 3 brothers and a sister, Roz. He says, listen, Dad, you took care of us. It's time to take care of you. But he says, what are people going to say if I retire and they're going to ask me questions? So Milton Berle, the man who never kept his mouth closed, said, Dad, when people ask you uncomfortable questions about retiring, you say nothing. You owe nobody an answer. He said, I don't want to talk about it. You don't owe anyone an answer. I'll take care of you. You don't have to answer every question. This is really ironic. Milton, who never was quiet, tells his father, just don't answer. He said, son, you convinced me. So as crazy as a guy as Milton Berle was, as funny as he was, he knew to appreciate his parents and took care of his parents. And in that year, Sukkot, they had a lot to gather in and to be happy of with their son. So it worked out very, very nicely. All right, but I want to tell you an action story about Milton Berle. It's not funny, but it'll make you proud. We ate a pomegranate on Rosh Hashanah, okay? We ate a pomegranate on Rosh Hashanah. And the Gemara is saying about pomegranate says, never discount your fellow Jew, even if you think they hardly do anything. The simplest Jew or the lowest Jew is full of mitzvahs like a pomegranate is seeds, okay? Now Milton, if you read the story of his life, he wasn't a tzaddik. Right? He doesn't have a long list of regular mitzvahs on his list, but my Rabbi used to tell me, don't judge too much. You never know what somebody else did. You don't know what kind of merits they had. So let me tell you a mitzvah that he did. It has to do with Amalek. When Milton was a kid, he was in vaudeville, so his mother schlepped him all over the place. His sister Raz said we only could afford one berth on the sleeper train, so his sister Rosalind said, my mother and I took turns who got to put their feet in Milton's face. Because Milton, his sister, and his mother all slept in the same bed on the berth train, so they took turns. You had to get used to people's smelly feet. You had to make sure you didn't have smelly feet. So I think he was performing in Scranton, and it was a snowy day, and Milton was walking to the theater, and some bullies came. Now the bullies didn't like vaudeville kids because they were jealous of them. And he started up with Milton, and he beat him up, and Milton got one shot in, but the bully knocked him into the snow. And the manager, Pat Anderson, came out and said, you get out of here, I'm calling the police. I don't want to see you around here. So Milton gets up, he checks his face to make sure there's no scars, because he's got to be in the show. And he says, Mr. Anderson, I really showed them, didn't I? I got in some good punches. So Mr. Anderson shook his head and said, Milty, the kid knocked you on your you-know-what. Kid, did anyone ever teach you how to fight? Your father ever teach you how to fight? So Milty said, no, I don't know how to fight. I'm going to teach you how to fight, because I can't be there every time there's a bully. And he taught Milty how to fight as a kid. And Milty continued. He would study boxers, and he learned how to fight very, very, very well. He learned how to fight so well. Now, I think most people know Frank Sinatra was a very, very tough guy, if not dangerous. Gave a lot of money to Israel. All right, but there was one time someone tried to attack Frank Sinatra. He was friends with him, and he knocked out the guy with one punch. So this is what happened. And this is a mitzvah none of us did. Maybe you did it once, but the rest of us didn't do it. Milton had just finished a show, nightclub show, and he was sitting having a drink with his friends. 1939, the Yorkville rallies. If you go to Washington, D.C., and you go to the Jewish War Veterans Museum, they will show you that in 1939, you had the Bund, the German Bund neo-Nazis that had anti-American and anti-Semitic rallies. If you go to the JWB Museum in D.C., they will show you a video of bloodied up Jewish veterans that went and fought these guys over German goods boycotts. There was a lot of trouble. Meyer Lansky, we had spoken one time. Meyer Lansky was secretly spoken to by a judge. A Jewish judge told Meyer Lansky, the gangster, the Russia, that, listen, we have freedom of speech in this country. I can't stop the rallies. Can you do anything? So Lansky said, sure, I'll get some thugs in there. And the judge said, no guns, no killing. So Lansky said, sure. Oh, no. No guns, no killing. We'll just rough them up a little bit. And he did it a few times, and that was the end of some of the rallies. Milton found out one night from his friends that they were going to break up a Nazi rally in Yorkville, New York. And Milton said, amen. What? Milton Berle, you're an actor, you're a comedian. You stay here and make the people laugh. We'll go beat up the Nazis. He says, you don't understand. I was taught how to fight. I know how to fight. I'm coming. So he runs out, and he had another show to do yet. His mother says, where are you going? So he did something he never did. He lied to his mother. I got an appointment, I'll be back soon. Gets in the car with his other buddies who didn't work for Lansky. And they had brass knuckles, they had pipes and newspaper, all the non-conventional weapons. And they went to the Nazi rally, opened the door, stormed down the aisle, bam, boom, bam, boom. Milton and his friends did a lot of damage, and they got hurt too. But they showed those neo-Nazis in Yorkville that, yeah, freedom of speech today, tomorrow, but you're not going to get away with this. Milton got his eye bloodied up. He went back to do the show, and his mother said, Milty, what happened? Oh my, I walked into the door. Don't worry about it. But I'm just saying, he knew when it was time to be serious, and he fought Amalek. He fought Amalek hand to hand. So, you know, on some pages of the book you say, was he really proud of his Judaism? But there were times that he felt very, very strong as a Jewish American, and he was there to do the right thing. So I want to end off with something really, really, really funny. One of the things Milton Berle was famous for was his sign-off. At the end of the show, he would say, okay, children, a message from Uncle Milty. You all have school tomorrow, so you must get some sleep, so you'll do well in school. So right now, go to mommy and daddy, kiss them on the cheek, give them a hug, and go upstairs and get a good night's sleep, because Uncle Milty said so. He did this for years. People told him it worked like a charm. Kids would turn around from the TV, said, Mommy, Daddy, Uncle Milty said it's time to go sleep, time to go schluff. Uncle Milty said so, and kids would listen. Milton Berle was told children all over the nation, from the Texaco Variety Show, would say, Mommy and Daddy, Uncle Milty told me to go to sleep. I like Uncle Milty. Is he your brother or Daddy's brother? Because kids began to become convinced he really was their Uncle Milty. Now, he had a nightclub show, and you know what nightclub shows are like. But the Texaco Variety Show, he wanted it to be a family show. So that's why he did that. But where did he get that started? It was not in the script. So here's a beautiful example of Sukkot, how sometimes something that starts out as a nothing can be a blessing from Hashem. A very good Sukkot harvest thought. You know how it is. Sometimes you could have a great idea, it goes nowhere. Sometimes you could have a nothing idea. I tell people all the time, Jack Benny's biggest joke. Everybody knows this joke. You know the routine. Jack Benny's walking down the street. A robber says, hey, yo, your money or your life? And he had his favorite position. He'd sit there like this. And the robber said, hey, buddy, didn't you hear me? Your money or your life? I heard you. Money, life. I have to think about that. I got to really think about that. Now that was Jack Benny's greatest joke, and they asked them, when they wrote the joke, they didn't think anything about the joke. They didn't think it was going to get big laughs. It got regular laughs. And that became his biggest thing. Jack Benny, cheapo, with the payphone in his living room, and he had no idea it was going to bring him such brachas. So Milton had a similar thing. This is what happened. Milton was walking down the street one day. A woman comes up to him. People would tell him about the show. Lady comes up to him, Mr. Berle, I like your show, but I have to talk to you. Yes, ma'am, what can I do for you? You are ruining my life. Lady, I never met you before. You are ruining my life because my kids on Tuesday night, they have to watch your show and they won't settle down afterwards. I can't get my kids to sleep, can't get them up in the morning for school. Mr. Berle, it's all your fault. Do something. Lady, I'm really sorry your kids are doing that, but there's nothing I can do. Mr. Berle, you're making the problem. You have to say on the show the kids should go to sleep. Lady, the sponsor doesn't allow that. Texaco, later on he worked for Buick, they don't allow personal messages. Mr. Berle, I don't know what to tell you, but you are messing up my life with your show. The kids insist on watching your show, and they won't. You have to do something. I don't care what it is. Nice show. Have a nice day. So Milton Berle, what am I going to do for this lady? He knocked it out of his mind, and you were not supposed to give those kind of messages on the show. All right. In the early days, it was live TV. So you all know when it was live TV and live radio, you could not make mistakes. Any mistake you made, right, got stuck on the show. You had to time everything perfectly. There was Ed McMahon. Remember Ed McMahon from The Tonight Show, Johnny Carson? Ed McMahon in his book about live TV says that, if you make a mistake and pre-recorded, you can fix it. You can fix almost anything. One night, they were going to a commercial on some show, and they said, and now a commercial for Gerber baby food. Gerber baby food. So they did the button, whatever it was, and the wrong commercial came on. It was a commercial for a bug spray. And instead of talking about baby food, the announcer said, yes, buy Raid bug spray. Give that to the little critters. That'll kill them. And they wanted to die because they're saying a baby food commercial, and then the bug spray guy says, well, you give this to the little critters, it'll kill them all. And there was nothing they could do because it was live TV. So on Milton Berle's show, there was a point where they realized sometimes the timing was off. And you had to end the show by the commercial, and you couldn't fix it. So the sponsor hired a girl with a stopwatch, and she had to calculate how long each routine was, how long each joke, and she had to calculate how long the laughs would be. Hard to figure out. So one night, even with her, they goofed. Milty thought he was finished, and the director does this. So he forgot it was live TV and he blurted out, 7 more minutes! And they caught it on the camera. He says, give me a chair. So he sits down, he's a very good ad-libber, he ad-libs, figures he's done. Director goes, 5 more minutes. So he tells another thing. He thought he's done. Director goes, the great Milton Berle was stuck. This face. The woman. Boys and girls, you all have school tomorrow. He starts giving a speech. Boys and girls, you all have school tomorrow. You got to get your rest. Uncle Milty wants you to go to sleep. Kiss mommy and daddy goodnight, give him a hug, and go up the stairs peacefully and quietly, because Uncle Milty said so. The director goes like this, and afterwards he said, hey, let's put that in every show. It works. So from that one incident where he saw the lady, forgot about her, got in the time mess up, and he was stuck and out of jokes, he came up with that end off, telling the kids to go to sleep, Uncle Milty, and he says, you know what? Let's keep it in the show, and it didn't bother him. And that became one of his most famous routines, and it was a bracha just from someone he met in the street that he tried to avoid. So at Sukkot time, we'll take a lesson from Milty and from other nice people that we should keep our eyes out for the brachas Hashem has given us and the brachas Hashem is going to give us. The Baal Shem Tov says, we sing at Shalosh Shudas, Ach tov v'chesed yirdafuni kol yimei chayai. Right? Good and kindness should chase after me all the days of my life. So the Baal Shem Tov says a lot of times you have good things right in front of you and you don't realize it. Says the Baal Shem Tov, yirdafuni. Yirdafuni means if I don't chase them, they should chase me. So the Baal Shem Tov says, King David is saying, Hashem, if I don't see the good should tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, turn around. Hashem sent your bracha. It's right there. So the Baal Shem Tov says, Yirdafuni. If I don't see the good, God, let it chase me and tap me on the shoulder. So Milton got tapped on the shoulder. So we should be meritorious to have many more minyanim and do mitzvahs together and to be able to laugh. And we should live the time when everyone gets to fill their cheeks with laughter because of a peaceful, wonderful world. Have a safe Sukkot. Thank you. I